Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Ji, Beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, we bow to you all. Fill us with thy blessings, with thy love, and may we share thy love with everyone. Om. Peace. Amen. So let's have some music.
Would you like to introduce this song, Swamiji?
Pardon?
Would you like to say something about this song?
Oh, what song?
Temptation of Christ.
No, just sing it.
Okay.
This is the temptation of Christ. Satan, when he took him up on the mountains and offered him the world, and he said no, he refused, rejected everything. So anyway, are there only 3 of you? Oh, 4 of you, okay.
Behold all the wonders, 'cause grace can bestow, if you but reclaim what you've given. Why not ask of God any wonder you crave? Worship me to satisfy all human needs. Dominion now over all this noble earth. All I ask of you is worship me.
Get thee behind me, Jesus declared. Satan, know you not, our Father offers love in your stead. His gift of love to all is my only food. He is all I own. What does man need but him?
Then the darkness lifted, love destroyed Satan's power. The Savior could begin bringing all to God. For he taught them in freedom, wanting naught in return. All he offered was perfect peace, perfect freedom of soul.
God is all I love, He is all there is. Wise is he who says, I am wholly His.
God is all I fear, lo, my throne of power, shaken by His love, was destroyed in that hour.
Throughout all the world, a new spirit was born. Jesus brought to men's hearts hope for those steeped in sin. Pour out all I love, a new spirit was born. Jesus brought to men's hearts
I am
those steeped in sin.
God is all I love, He is all there is. Jesus body who says, I am who
steeped in sin.
Beautiful, thank you. You know, there's more connection between Christianity and Hinduism than most people realize. Certainly Christians don't accept it because they think that all Hindus are idol worshippers. Indeed, these are not idols, they are ideals. And it's ideal worship, not idol worship. Idol worship is worshipping money. Idol worship is worshipping fame and things of this world. But to have an ideal represented in a form, there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, the connection began with the 3 wise men who came to Christ. You know, they saw the star in the east and they followed it. But they were following it, according to the legend, they were following it eastward. But of course they had to go westward. So what was the star doing in the east, following, and they're going eastward? The fact is that the spiritual eye is where you see the star. And to see the star this is the east of the body. In Hebrew, kedem is the east, and it means that which lies before. So this is the east of the body, this is the west, this is the north, this is the south. And they followed this star, meaning the spiritual eye represents the first of the astral world, the golden circle around it. Then the blue inside represents the causal world, and the star in the center represents God. And what they were recognizing is that this was an avatar who had come down from God to the world to help save mankind. And when Jesus was mature, the last thing in the Bible, before he began his mission at the age of 33, 12 years old, he was in the temple, and from then on there's nothing. The fact is that Jesus went to the Orient and went back to those masters and learned from them. And this connection was even continued that Master said that Jesus appeared to Babaji and asked Babaji in the Himalayas, what is happening to my religion? They still do good works, but they've forgotten communion with God. And he said, let us send a new message to the world that will help to bring man to the state of God communion. And so Yogananda's mission was that. His mission was, he called it the second coming of Christ. And when I was working on his commentaries on the teachings of Christ, I could not help the feeling that his personality was very much like that of Jesus. He said that Jesus had to reincarnate. A man of such compassion naturally would come back to the world again and again. I feel that Yogananda was Jesus. But there's a very close connection between these two religions. And the problem always is that most people identify religion with belief. Belief has nothing to do with it. People used to believe the world was flat. That didn't make it flat. Their belief didn't make the reality different. You have to know what is true and go by experience. Once people went around the world, they found the world was round. And we have to, you know, when they discovered America, Christopher Columbus thought he was discovering India. That's why they called the American natives American Indians. They called them Indians. But the real teaching of religion has nothing to do with beliefs. And nowadays there's a big conference coming up in just a few days on the 17th in where is it?
Hyderabad.
Hyderabad. I keep forgetting that name. Anyway, I sent a message to them which they asked me for, and I was saying that we must change the whole definition of religion in the world. That is what keeps us separate. We must understand that it must be an experience. When you are kind to somebody, you experience more happiness than when you're brutal to him. When you give, you're happier than when you take. And all these things, from our experience, we can understand where the way to right action lies. We feel happier when we live in tune with truth. We feel unhappier when we don't. I was born in Romania. At the age of 6 months was my first trip to America. I still remember vaguely certain sea scenes from that trip. But I've traveled all my life, and I've been to so many different countries. And I find that people are just people. It doesn't matter what color skin they wear. It doesn't matter what their eyes are like or anything. We're all just people. And once we can understand that, then we can have peace and harmony in this world. But I also grew up during the Nazi reign, when people were thinking that the Germans, we Germans, will conquer the world. This attitude is terrible. It led to so much suffering. We're coming into a new age. You know, December 21st, that's only 5 days away. There's a lot of fear around that date. Will we have a huge cataclysm? How do I know? But I'll tell you this, and Master didn't put the date on it at all. But in church one time in Hollywood, I heard him say, "You don't know what a terrible cataclysm is coming." Now, cataclysm is not something man-made. It's something made by nature. So who knows what will happen? We're living, as the Chinese used to say, in interesting times. So anyway, would you like to ask me any questions? You might as well read that question.
Swami, we have 2 questions that were sent.
From Blazy. Where's Blazy? Okay.
The first, what is the difference between moksha and mukti, if there is a difference?
Well, you know, I'm not really sure, but I believe that mukti means freedom from reincarnation into this world. Moksha is after jivan moksha, mukta. When you have freed yourself from ego, you have freed yourself from all your past, you haven't completely freed yourself from the memories of past lifetimes, but you're free from the ego, free from any bondage to this world. You may continue to come back to this world to help other people, but you at that stage have to remember all your past lives. I use the example of a pirate because it's extreme, but all the many, many past lives that you lived, millions of them, you have to remember and realize that it was God who came in that form and dreamed that form and now became God again. When you have attained that state, then you've attained moksha. And most people, once they attain moksha, just sort of say, well, that's enough for me. But a few people coming to that state, they want to help other people. And they say with a desireless desire to help people, they come back. And Yogananda said, I will come back if need be 1 trillion times, so long as one stray brother is weeping by the wayside. It's an amazing statement to make. But the avatars like Krishna and Buddha and Moses and Jesus and Yogananda, they come back again and again, because if without them, mankind would be left in darkness. So moksha is that complete freedom after having freed yourself of all past life. Jivan mukta is the state of having freed yourself from the world, and mukti, I think, means to go beyond the need to reincarnate. Those saints too don't need to reincarnate. I asked Master, why don't they? He said because they want to help other people. So the next question. Okay, Blazy?
Can desires be fulfilled at the causal realm on the material plane?
If they could not, then you would have to go to the causal plane to free them. We find people becoming free in this world too. They're not many, but they do become. So yes, they can. The freedom that most people, Krishna said, out of 1,000, one seeks me. You look around in the streets and you don't see many people with any spiritual glow in their faces. But then he said, out of 1,000, out of thousands, one finds me. Out of thousands who seek me, one finds me. So in this world, in this yuga, not many people seek God. And of those who seek God, not many people find Him. But in higher ages, more people find God. I asked Master, however, what about the people in this age? Will they be coming back in Satya Yuga? He said, oh no. He said, there are many planets to go to. So it's not that easy. You can't just sit around waiting for Satya Yuga. You will have to go to other planets. And it's really ridiculous to think that ours is the only planet. If the universe is capable of creating human life, then this is not the only planet it's created it on. And another very interesting thing, an answer to Darwin, who says that evolution is completely accidental. Why is it that people who have seen people coming on flying saucers, all those people from other planets, they look sort of like us. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes, nose, mouth. How did they evolve to that point? The fact is, it's a divine plan for the whole universe. And Darwin might as well go soak his head. He had it all wrong. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
If we believe that all the suffering is because of karma, what will be our motivation to reduce it? Whatever.
If we believe that all suffering is due to our karma, what is our motivation to overcome it? If we should just accept it.
Or help others.
What is our motivation to help others?
That doesn't quite do the question. Why do we keep coming back to this world of suffering? If the only thing that brings you to this world is desire for this world. They don't have automobiles in heaven, so you have to come back here if you like them. They don't have cigarettes in heaven, so you have to come back here. And they don't have sex in heaven, so you have to come back here. All the things that attract people to this world are because they have desire for this. But if they have so much suffering, Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, get away from my ocean of suffering and misery. And why do people keep coming back if there's so much suffering? Because there's also pleasure. When God, who is one, manifested the universe, He had to divide that sense of oneness into 2. And so you have Dvaita, you have duality. And for every plus there's a minus. And because people think of the pluses, they forget the minuses, and then they come back and they have to go through all the minuses again. But your question, what was his question?
Swami, if suffering is due to karma, then what is our motivation to help others?
I don't see the reason in that question. Suffering is due to karma, happiness is due to karma, success is due to karma, failure is due to karma, everything is due to karma. What is our reason for trying to help others? If we didn't suffer, we wouldn't want to help other people. I think that because we have suffered, we understand what suffering is, and we understand what suffering is in other people, and we want to help those people. That's why, no avatar is a creation of God. Christians believe that Jesus was just a manifestation of God. That's not true. He went through all the things we're going through. And he knew what it was, and he understands human pains, and he wants to help people out of it. So your question really doesn't make sense. It's because you've suffered that you want to help others. If you do, and if you don't, you'll have to suffer a little more. Because without suffering, how do you know what people go through? But people do go through suffering, and when you feel it in yourself, if you have, in this world, you see, we have this ego that we're bound to. But when you suffer and you see somebody else suffering, you know what he's going through. How can you not want to help him? My whole life has been devoted to that. When I was a little child, my mother would read me stories, and she would point to somebody who was in a bad state, and my lips would quiver, and I'd say, "Poor this." And in fact, my whole life has been given to wanting to help suffering. And because my suffering has been spiritual, I want to help people spiritually. People who are doctors, I think they have suffered physically, and they want to help people physically. People who have been insane want to help them mentally, and I think that many psychiatrists are not altogether cured of that. So does that answer your question? Any other questions?
How can we cultivate patience?
Patience is, now I knew you'd get up, sooner or later. I mean, this philosophy is a little deep for him. Patience comes from accepting things as they are. And you might as well accept things as they are, because that's how they are. And so if we get angry or upset, it's only because we wish things were different from the way they are. We must say that, I know when I was a little child, I was 13, I weighed only 107 pounds. And a big bully, 230 pounds, decided he had it for me. I had this English accent in America, and it seemed like an insult to the American flag. And he came into my room and just beat me like this. There was nothing I could do about it. So I just lay there and accepted it. Why get angry? Why? Somebody later said, "Well, why didn't you shout for help?" I wasn't afraid. I just let him waste his energy, and then I had a few bruises, but what's that? This patience comes from not wishing things were different from the way they are. Okay?
This is something to do with spiritualism. Is spiritualism, does it get evolved in a human being right from the beginning, or it is acquired, or if it is acquired, at what point of time it has to be acquired?
What's he saying?
Does spiritualism evolve in a human being from the very beginning, or is it something we acquire?
Somebody asked Master one time, a disciple asked him, will I ever fall from the path? He said, how could you? Everyone in the world is on the spiritual path. And the most deep sinner is on the spiritual path. He just doesn't know it. Everybody in the world has only one desire for happiness. And some people define happiness as revenge, getting even with people, hurting people, but it's still a desire for happiness. And why do we have this desire? Because God's nature is Ananda, bliss. And we are His product of His consciousness. So we all have this desire. And so we're all on the spiritual path. And we find that this way didn't work, so we try another way, and another way, and another way. And finally, after who knows how many million lives, maybe days of Brahma even, finally we come to the point where we understand that it's not out there. We find a little happiness in giving and not in taking. We find that certain things make us happier than other things, and if we will go with that way, and gradually come onto the spiritual path. But this longing for God takes a long time. One time a disciple of Yogananda said, I don't think I have very good karma, Master. He said, remember this. It takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God. It is no small thing. It's a sign of having suffered for many lives before you begin to have this longing. From childhood, I had this longing for truth. I didn't know I wanted God. Because the God that people talked to me in church wasn't interesting to me. It just didn't make sense. How could he be an old man with a long white beard? It was ridiculous. And so, but I wanted truth, and I tried to seek it through astronomy. I tried to seek it through science, through political systems, uplift. I wanted to help mankind in some way. I tried it through the arts, but everything had a brick wall at the end. And finally, I remember taking a long walk out into the night and asking myself, if there's a God, what must he be? And I thought, well, he can't be an old man with a long beard. He can't be a policeman or a judge. And I said, well, what is making me ask this question? I said, because I'm conscious. Then if I'm conscious, he must be consciousness. And so the discovery I made was very Vedantic, although I knew nothing about the Indian teachings. But I said, he must be consciousness. Therefore my duty in life must be to open myself more to that consciousness. And I decided that was my mission in life. And I would go to a Brazilian jungle or someplace, I didn't know Indian teachings at all, but someplace where I could just be alone and not bother mankind. I had wanted to be a playwright. I thought, why flood the world with my ignorance? The world is just as well off without me, unless I can find at least peace of mind. And so I wanted to go off and be alone and just meditate and do something. I didn't know what. But at that time, God helps you. Just if you reach one hand up to God, he drops two to lift you up. And so at that point, my father was sent by his company, Esso, to Egypt to explore for oil. And the reason I think that was a divine blessing was because they took him away from Egypt after a little while. He found where oil would be found. Mobil Oil went there and found oil just where he'd said that it would be found. But they didn't let him find it. They brought him to France and he found oil there. Anyway, the very day that I put my mother on the ship to go join him, I went uptown, New York, and I found Autobiography of a Yogi. And I had never dreamed that God could be so much joy and bliss. And I took the next bus across the country, and I came to Yogananda. I said the first thing I said to him were, I want to be your disciple. But that desire comes after lifetimes of seeking. I asked him once, have I been your disciple for thousands of years? He said, it's been a long time, that's all I'll say. It takes time, but it needn't take time. If you would really make up your mind now that nothing else matters, you would find him very quickly. In the Gita it says that even the worst of sinners, if he would steadfastly meditate, he would quickly come to me. So the caste system too is not a hereditary thing. It's a question of your desire. Shudras are stupid people. They're not born. A Brahmin might have a Shudra son. A Shudra might have a Brahmin son. It depends on you. The hereditary thing came afterwards. And the truth of it is that when a Shudra could become a Brahmin, if in that lifetime he meditates, if Krishna said the worst of sinners, he must have met a Shudra. Remember, don't have this caste system. Master said every country has some karmic curse. The caste system is the karmic curse of India. Caste is true, system is false. Okay? Yeah.
How do you overcome extreme stage fright or fear?
How do you overcome extreme stage fright or fear?
You know, it's funny. The first time Master had me lecture, I was still only 22 years old. I met him when I was 22 in September. I was still 22 in May when I got word that he wanted me to lecture in his place in San Diego and give Kriya. I had attended only one initiation, my own. And he wanted me to give Kriya and to lecture in his place. And I knew, because it was my job at the time, to send out the announcements to the newspapers who would be lecturing where. And I knew that he had not spoken in San Diego for 2 months. And I knew how eager they were that he come back. And now I had to go, a little boy of 22. And I was so sorry for those poor people. I didn't have time for stage fright. I think the main thing is, don't think in terms of what people are thinking of you. Think in terms of what you are giving people. Then you won't have stage fright. Stage fright is receiving. Giving, with freedom from stage fright is giving. Stage fright is fear of what you're receiving. So I've never had stage fright. I've never had nervousness before people, because I've only thought in terms of their need. It's very simple. Okay, any other question?
It is often said that this world is a dream of God. And if I have to believe this statement, I sometimes wonder why God is dreaming so bad at times. Why he is dreaming that people are fighting, people are suffering, countries are fighting, and so on and so forth.
He says it is said that the world is a dream of God, but sometimes it's hard for him to believe it, that God is dreaming such a bad dream where wars and suffering exist.
You know, if you had a book in which nothing happened, a novel, the man was born on the right side of the tracks, he had the influence to get into a big company, he rose quickly in the company because of that influence, he met the boss's daughter, fell in love with her, and inherited the boss's place, and then when the boss died, he inherited his home. I think you would put that book down on page 5. It has to be exciting, and it may seem terrible to us, but when it's all over, it's all a dream. And nobody who has ever found God has ever said, what a scam. They've all said it was completely worth it. So when you look back after having his bliss and see all the suffering and trouble you've gone through, you'll say it was worth every minute of it. So you have to look at it with God's eyes. You know, I think Master added to Shankaracharya's definition of Satchidananda, that ever existing, ever conscious, Master added ever new. And I think that ever new consciousness explains why God would create the universe. He is creative. It's natural for him to express himself. And he has fun. And we could have fun if we weren't so close to it. So remove yourself emotionally from what goes on. When you do, you know, I've been through tests in my life. I've just thought, what fun. It don't matter. When you see it all, it makes for more excitement. Things are not, if things were just bland, you wouldn't enjoy this show. It's only right now that you're not enjoying it. But yes, you find violent murders and terrible things going on, but you don't die. As the Gita says, people go on in the other world, and there's no such thing as death. Somebody can be murdered. He wakes up in the afterworld perfectly happy, And in the Gita, in the Mahabharata, you find all those people after death enjoying it all. Any other questions? Yeah.
My question is somewhat related to his question. My question is, God has created both evil and good things. So why it is like first he creates evil things, and after that to rectify or demolish evil, he sends good people on earth?
According to the Hindu scriptures, you mean?
Yeah, I mean it's a common belief.
Swami, it says his questions related to this gentleman's. He said, God has created good and evil, but it usually shows mostly in the Hindu scriptures that he first creates evil and then he has to create a good in order to vanquish that evil.
No, that's not true. That's misunderstanding. God creates evil with creation because, okay, what is evil? It's an energy going out from the spirit to create. And that energy that moves away from spirit is what makes the thing evil, because the inward pull of God's love pulls everything back. But the two forces is neither good nor evil. Good and evil are really only relative terms. What is good for you will be what's above you. What is evil for you is what is below you. I'm sure that none of you is a drunkard. Being a drunkard to you would be something evil, but to a drunkard it's not so bad. And it's a ladder. The higher you are, the closer you come to God, the more you, that which is below you is evil, that which is above you is good. Satan and God, both good and evil, have their magnetic power. And if you go in the direction of evil, it's like walking a thin path. On the right side, I'm speaking of the right symbolically, meaning good. On the right side, there's verdure and beauty and everything. On the left side, there's increasing desert, sand, and finally nothing but barrenness. If you go left instead of right, there's a power there. Your thoughts are not your own. God, there's thoughts are universally rooted, and when you live on a certain level, those are the thoughts that come to you. I wouldn't dream of having low thoughts because I'm not low, but people who live low, they have those thoughts quite naturally. Those are the thoughts on that level of consciousness. It depends on where your consciousness is. I remember one time, I was about 22 at the time, and I had a mood. And I thought, well, I don't like this mood, and I couldn't reason my way out of it because reason always follows feeling. So I thought, well, what do I do? And I put my mind here. 5 minutes is all it took. Having raised my consciousness to this level, there was no mood. No reason for a mood. So when, when you go left, there's this satanic pull, this outward movement from God that pulls you more and more in that direction. And you can fall almost to the infinite, because you can become even the size of a germ. Even a germ, you become a germ. You can't fall infinitely. That's the nice side of it. You can rise infinitely. Somebody asked Yogananda once, is there any end to evolution? He said, no end. You go on until you achieve endlessness. So you become infinite. But in either direction, if you turn right, as I said, you lift one hand, God drops two. You turn to God, His grace begins to pull you. And you don't have to do it all. The more you're looking for God, the more that power pulls you into His love. That's why you don't have to create your own devotion. Ask God to give you that devotion. He will give it to you. But if you want to turn towards Satan, Satan will take hold of you. And there's no limit, virtually, except that I would say a germ was pretty much of a limit. People have fallen that far. And there are whole galaxies where some people are tamasic, some people in other galaxies are rajasic. Ours is a rajasic galaxy. There are galaxies that are mostly sattvic. and disease germs. This is a very interesting thing that Yogananda said, that disease germs on this world come from tamasic galaxies, drawn here by karma and drawn here to be punished. And how can they get from those distant galaxies to here? There's no such thing as time or space. The most distant galaxy is as close to you as my own hand, your own hand. So these are very deep things, and I don't need to go into them at length. But remember that good and evil exist simultaneously. The moment movement goes away from God, good and evil both come into the picture. God is beyond good. He is beyond good and evil. But as soon as the creation is manifested, there has to be the dark side and the bright side. Okay? Any other questions?
Could you define spirituality?
Would you define spirituality?
I would define spirituality as that direction of movement which takes you toward inner peace. The direction of movement that takes you out of inner peace is only in a general sense spiritual, because you'll learn and turn back. But the turning back is the more spiritual.
Maybe this question is very childish, but a few days back I was watching television. There was a program which in which it was shown that there was a tantric, and that guy was controlling some other person through a doll, and they used to call this this black magic as voodoo. So I was just wondering, how is it possible that a person sitting in that village, how he is controlling my karma through a doll?
What is he?
He's talking about, Swami, he said a few days ago he was watching television, and on the television show they were showing a person who was into voodoo and how he could control another individual through a doll. And he's wondering, how can such a thing happen?
They do. We have to start with the fact that they do. How do they do? Well, if you have enough power, remember, evil has power. And that's why it's very important for you not to mix with worldly people, not to mix with people who pull your energy down. You may say it's all in the mind. Well, that's exactly where it is. That's what all the problem comes from. So be with good people. Be with people who help to uplift you. But that evil influence can also act from afar. And if you wish to develop that quality, you can hex people, you can curse people, and that curse can be real. Don't mix with people like that. But the fact that they exist is true, and that's why the blessings of a saint have power at a distance. And a saint can pray for you on the other side of the world and you can be helped. But remember, this whole world is mental. It's a dream show. And all that goes on is really only in the mind anyway. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was wondering how a person sitting in a remote corner can control my karma through a doll.
How can someone sitting in another part of the world control his karma through a doll?
Well, it's his thoughts through the doll. The doll, like the images of Brahma and Vishnu, not Brahma, but Shiva and Vishnu and so on. They're images to focus your concentration. So they use these images, but it's their thoughts that are going out. So there's such a thing as black magic. And I'm told that people in India sometimes do practice it. This is bad karma for the magician. Any other questions? Why is it that mostly men ask questions? Okay.
Swami, how to balance the spiritual life and the normal life?
How do you balance your spiritual life with your material life or your regular life?
Bring your spiritual into the material. Do everything for God. Ramakrishna had a woman approach him and she said that she had a child She had to take care of her child. How could she have time to give to God? He said, see your little child as Balakrishna. So everything you do, think of it as God. You're worshiping God through this form. Yes, even in business. Mind you, I grew up in a wealthy home, and I thought that business was something horrible. I was completely prejudiced against business until I found that Master's two most advanced disciples were businessmen. And that caused me to reorient my thinking. There's nothing wrong with business, it's how you do it. If you do it for others, it's a good thing. So business can be a good karma if you are in business to help others and not just to grab for yourself. Okay.
Swamiji, what did Ananda Mohima mean when she is, it's written in the in your last stanza of Samadhi Pad in Patanjali book, like when Ananda Mohima said that what it is and it isn't, and he is and he isn't. What does that mean?
That's a very peculiar thing. She said of God, he is and he isn't, and neither is he nor is he not. How do you get that one? That's a tough one. Basically, it said that God is beyond definition. You can't, we think with our reason to put him in little boxes. He's beyond all that. Yes.
You mentioned avatar. I'm wondering what is the difference between an avatar and an enlightened master? And was Yogananda an avatar or an enlightened master?
What is the difference between an avatar and an enlightened master? And was Yogananda an avatar or an enlightened master?
An enlightened master is someone who's attained Jivan Mukta. He has overcome his ego. He still has past karma to overcome, but he's one with God just as even the avatars are. The difference is that his power is less. When you're an avatar, you come back from God with the power of God. So such people are world saviors, and they found the world religions, and they can save people in the world, all over the world. So Yogananda, yes, he was an avatar. He said he killed Yogananda many lifetimes ago. So all our line of gurus were avatars. Lahiri Maharshi, Babaji, Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda. Okay? Yeah.
Do these avatars have a rebirth?
Do these avatars have rebirth?
Well, the avatar is a rebirth. It means a descent from above. And will they come back? Well, if they come back once, you can pretty well bet on their coming back again. They didn't need to come back in the first place. They came back only to help other people. Yogananda has been so many times. Yogananda was Arjuna. Yogananda was Nara, with Nara and Narayan. Yogananda was all these past. He's been many times in this world. So, yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Sir, many a times in a day, I came across angry thoughts, unnecessary thoughts, and fancy thoughts. And after some time, I get conscious that, okay, somehow my senses are controlling my mind, and I come to know that, okay, negative energy is, I should not be focusing on that. And then I try to convert, but after some time, again, same thing happens. So how shall I convert these negative energies to spiritual energy?
I'm deaf as a stone. I need his help.
Many times during a day, Swami, he says that he has negative thoughts, unnecessary thoughts, or fanciful thoughts. But every time he becomes aware of it, he tries to shift, but pretty soon he comes back to those same thoughts. How can he stay in that?
This is an important thing to keep in mind. Be with positive people, first of all. Those thoughts also come from our environment. Master said environment is stronger than willpower. If you have a job under a boss who's a negative person, it would be very good to change jobs. Seriously, these things have an influence on you. If you have people around you, try to Satsang is the most important thing. That's why living in communities like this is such an important thing. People who live surrounded by surrounded by people who are seeking God, that's a tremendous help. I have to say that I think the best karma I've received in this life is for the communities I have started, for the fact of giving people an opportunity to live in good company and to seek God together. But apart from that, if it comes from your inner self, always try to keep your mind up here. Your negative thoughts won't come if your mind is here. They will come if you allow your energy to go down. Otherwise, simply resolving not to think negative thoughts won't help. If I think I'm not ill, you'll become ill. So affirm positive things. Any other questions? My goodness, you're with it, aren't you? Okay.
If one is breathless, is he aware that he is breathless?
If you think so. You see people. You can know you're restless. I think restlessness comes from sex consciousness to a large extent.
She meant breathless.
Oh, breathless. You know that you're breathless because your breath doesn't come. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
So if Kriya is the jet airplane route and able to burn up lifetimes of karma, if done correctly, what would you say would be second to that?
Second to Kriya?
Yeah.
Devotion. Yeah. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Patanjali defined yoga as the neutralization of these vortices of feeling, attachment, desire in the spine. They settle in the spine according to the level of consciousness. So the low ones settle in the lower centers, the upper ones settle in the higher centers. But they all look like blocks to that stream of energy going up the spine. This is why many people accuse yoga of presuming to force God's grace. You can't presume. It's working with His grace. And His grace is that which brings the energy up the spine. And that's how grace happens for everybody who finds God. So that which will help to raise your energy, devotion is the most important thing. I can live next door to the most famous restaurant in the world, let's say. I can know its menu, I can know its food. If I'm not hungry, I won't go there. So you have to have this hunger for God. There has to be devotion to God, and it comes from the heart. So work hard. Sri Yukteswar said that the most, he was a Gyan avatar too. But he said the first and most important step on the path, the first most important thing on the path is to develop the heart's natural love. Without that, he said, you won't take one step toward God. So how do you develop that devotion? Pray for it. Think of the suffering in this world and develop a longing to help that suffering. Think of how you have suffered and how desperately you need to get out of this egoic limitation. Think of the reasons for it and try to help other people and be kind to other people. Kindness helps to develop that sweetness in your own heart. Many things develop it. Perhaps the most important thing is chanting. When I came to Yogananda, I used to chant for hours every day, and it helped to develop my heart's love. He said chanting is half the battle. Okay?
Swami, what is devotion? Because a normal person also sits and chants prayers. He is also called a devotee. What is exactly a devotion?
What is devotion?
Devotion is the feeling in the heart of longing. And some people are devoted to food, but that's not what I mean. Some people are devoted to their wives or husband. That's not enough, unless you see God in that form. The kind of devotion I mean is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it teaches you to think of the heart as a lotus, and you turn all the petals of the lotus upward toward the brain. When that energy goes from the heart upward toward the brain, that is devotion. Okay.
What is the difference between Patanjali's yoga and Yogananda's yoga?
What is the difference between Patanjali's yoga and Yogananda's yoga?
There can't be any difference. Yoga is yoga. But Patanjali was the original and authoritative expert or exponent on yoga. Yogananda taught Patanjali yoga.
So does Baba, Yogananda and all that come from the same line as Patanjali?
Do they come from the same line, our line of gurus? As
It's the
Patanjali?
same light. Who cares about lines? They come from the same light. Any other? Have I beaten you into the ground? Yes?
How can I do a correct self-analysis?
How can I do correct self-analysis?
First of all, you have to be completely impartial. You have to accept that you might be wrong. That's pretty hard to do. People always say, well, I'm right. And they try to justify themselves. The first thought you have when you're trying to introspect is, I may be wrong. And even to try to find out how you might be wrong. And then you're on safe grounds and you compare. Then the next thing is, what have I done will lead me toward greater bliss? And what have I done that will lead me away from that? Try to introspect as to those things which take you upward and not downward. Heaven is not up above and hell is not down below. It's in your own body. And what takes your energy upward, mind you, the people on the other side of the world, they're upside down as far as we're concerned, but it's still their own bodies is up for them, even if it's down for us. Hell and heaven are in your own body. Okay?
My question is, matter is a form of energy, and energy is form of thoughts. I want to know how the concept of space and time is related to the thoughts.
He says matter we know is a form of energy and energy is a form of thoughts. How does space and time relate to thought?
Space, Master said very interestingly, he said it is a distinct vibration which separates this world from the astral world. And that's why we can't see the astral world because of this vibration of space. Don't ask me what it means, I don't know. It just completely, but he said it, and I'm quoting him. Space is a vibration. Time and space are both delusions. In the Dwapara Yuga, which we are now in, we will overcome the delusion of space. We already have gone to the moon. We've sent missiles to Mars. In Dwapara Yuga and much more advanced centuries, we'll be able to travel to other planets. Will we reach the point of understanding that the most distant planet in the most distant galaxy is as close as our own hand? I don't know. But then comes the delusion of time. And in Treta Yuga, which will come after another 2,000 years, that will be overcoming the delusion of time. And there are certain people who have written, Bhrigu, Agastya, wrote from those times 5,000 years ago, predicting lives in this world today. And I've had readings that were amazingly accurate about my life. My little human being was known back 5,000 years ago, what I would do and things. So time itself is a delusion. It's all really one in God. God, you go on, as he said, Yogananda said, until you achieve endlessness. But to understand it mentally, it's very difficult.
This deduces me further because if everything is
You're blessing me.
this confuses me further because if everything is known to the rishis about 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, this means everything is fixed. Then what are we struggling for, or why it has been created in this way?
Swami is saying, now you've confused him further, because
I'm sure I have.
because if the rishis 5,000 years ago knew our lives, that means everything is fixed. So what are we doing trying to struggle and get out of it?
Yeah, it's a puzzle. Somewhere God knows when you will seek Him and when you will find Him. On that level, but on this level we're on the relative level, and we have to deal with that relativity. If you don't try, you won't get anywhere. If you do try, you will. Somebody up there may know when you will, but it's because he knows when you will get enough energy to do it. But you still have to, with your willpower, do it. The fact that he knows when you'll get that willpower to do it is another question. Okay? You're talking deep stuff here. Any other questions? Do you children have any questions? Do you have any questions? No? Mhm.
So is it okay to be emotional in one's devotion?
No. Emotion is waves on the sea. You have to come. There's got to be a yearning for it, not emotional. Okay?
Swamiji, you said that in Dwapar Yuga we might be able to understand the space constraints and space illusion, and in Treta Yuga we might be able to understand the time illusion. That means we are actually, because I have heard that this is Kali Yuga and we are going downwards.
This is not Kali Yuga, that's the mistake. Indians believe this is Kali Yuga, but Sri Yukteswar said that mistake came during Kali Yuga, and that in fact Kali Yuga ended in 1700 AD, and there was a Shandhya of 200 years. Dwapara Yuga proper began in 1900, and now we're going upward. And you can see the signs that this is an age of energy, which is Dwapara. You see, everything is electric. Everything is done by electricity. We hear the word energy all the time. Kali Yuga, everything is fixed. Now we see that nothing is fixed. So everything is more fluid. You see, all the signs are of Dwapara. But this is the dogma in today's India, and it's a mistaken dogma. Okay? Okay, I think that may be enough. God bless you all.